Bradley Beal spent 11 years being the most loyal player in the NBA. 11 years, multiple extensions, a $251 million supermax, a no-trade clause, and 0 finals appearances. That's not a success story, that's a $500 million mistake hiding inside a feel-good narrative. Here's what ESPN won't tell you. The NBA literally built a financial system that punishes teams for keeping their best players, and most front offices don't figure that out until they're already trapped. We're going to walk through 4 real case studies, break down the CBA mechanics that make this trap work, and give you 3 fixes that could save franchises hundreds of millions. If you want to work in sports business, understanding this structural flaw separates analysts from fans. Stay tuned. Start with Beal because it's the cleanest disaster on record. Washington used bird rights to keep extending him every time his contract came up. That's the mechanism that lets teams go over the salary cap to re-sign their own guys. Sounds like a reward for loyalty, and we'll get into why it's actually a trap in a minute. The Wizards eventually handed Beal a fully guaranteed $251 million supermax in 2022. Then they threw in a no-trade clause on top of it. So now you've got a max salary player on a team that hasn't sniffed the second round in years, and you literally can't move him without his permission. Washington tried. The Suns eventually took him in a 2023 trade that cost Phoenix meaningful assets and left them with an injured star eating a monster contract. Both franchises are still feeling that deal. That's what loyalty costs when the front office math is broken. Now here's where it gets more complicated, because the Bell story is obvious in hindsight. Damian Lillard's story is harder because the loyalty was completely real. 11 years in Portland, multiple extensions, roughly $196 million or more committed across those deals. Dame never asked out. He showed up, he put up numbers, and he genuinely believed the organization was going to build something around him. They never did. Portland made the conference finals once in that entire window and couldn't hold it together. By 2023, the situation had deteriorated enough that Lillard finally requested a trade, ending up in Milwaukee. The loyalty was real, the front office math was broken, and the gap between those two things is exactly what this video is about. Now let's go to the cases that look like wins, because this is where it gets counterintuitive. Giannis won a title. The 2021 Bucks championship is real. It happened and the Supermax loyalty play worked on the court. But here's the twist. Milwaukee is now slamming into repeater tax walls and second apron restrictions that make every future roster move harder and more expensive. You can't use certain salary exceptions. Sign and trades get blocked. The cap flexibility that most teams use to upgrade a roster, Giannis stayed. They won, and now the organization is basically handcuffed trying to reload around him. The ring is real, the cost is still accumulating. Jokic mirrors it almost exactly. 3 MVP awards, 2 championships, franchise value through the roof. Denver's loyalty to their homegrown guy delivered everything you'd want, but the Nuggets face the same sustainability question now under the new CBA rules. The math that worked during the dynasty window gets harder every year they stay in the tax. The clock is ticking, and then there's the live warning, the Celtics. Boston won the championship in 2024. They should be celebrating. Instead, they're looking at a projected $470 to $513 million combined roster and luxury tax bill for 2025-26. Roughly $250 million of that is luxury tax alone, on top of actual payroll. Even champions aren't safe from the math. So how does a league that claims to reward loyalty end up punishing it this badly? The answer is buried in 3 specific CBA rules most fans have never heard of. So here's how the system actually works and why it's designed in a way that sounds fair until you run the numbers. The Supermax gives homegrown stars 35% of the salary cap instead of the standard 30%. That 5% gap sounds small. Over a 5-year deal, it compounds into tens of millions of extra dollars. The team pays it, the player earns it, and everybody calls it a loyalty reward. That's the marketing version. The accounting version is that you've just locked your single biggest cap line at the highest possible rate for half a decade. Bird rights are the mechanism underneath all of it. When a team holds bird rights on a player, they can go over the salary cap to re-sign him. That sounds like a good thing, and for one transaction, it is. The problem is that bird rights are also what make it so easy to keep extending a player year after year, even when the situation isn't working. Washington used bird rights on Beal 3 separate times. Each extension felt reasonable in isolation. The cumulative effect was a franchise locked into one player with no escape route. Then you hit the repeater tax, and this is where it gets brutal. Standard luxury tax runs roughly $1.50 for every dollar you're over the line. Once you're a repeat offender, meaning you've been in the tax too many times in a rolling window, that rate jumps to $2.50 per dollar and higher. The new first and second apron rules layer on top of that. Cross the first apron and you lose access to certain trade exceptions. Cross the second apron and sign-in trades are off the table. The mid-level exception shrinks, and your ability to aggregate contracts and trades gets restricted. Basically, every tool a front office uses to reshape a roster gets taken away precisely when the team needs flexibility the most. Put it side by side and the gap is staggering. A franchise that trades a star at peak value avoids the tax entirely, resets its cap, and rebuilds with full tools. A franchise that stays loyal and keeps extending can easily spend $150 to $200 million more in combined salary and tax payments over a 4-year window for the same or worse competitive results. The Warriors paid over $500 million in cumulative luxury tax across their dynasty years. The Celtics are on pace to approach that number. The loyalty incentives the league built didn't create sustained winners. They created a financial arms race that only the richest owners can survive. The tax bill is just the accounting problem. The business damage runs deeper. When a star is trapped on a mediocre team for 2 or 3 straight lottery seasons, premium sponsors quietly pull back. A brand partnership tied to a losing market doesn't move product the same way. Sponsorship rates drop, local media deals stagnate, and the star's commercial value, which should be growing during his prime, gets anchored to a franchise going nowhere. It's a brand equity drain disguised as a loyalty story. Franchise valuation stagnates too. You're not bad enough to tank and get a top pick. You're not good enough to sell playoff packages at a premium. The repeater tax trap is also a revenue trap, and teams stuck in that middle band can spend a decade losing ground to franchises that blew it up and rebuilt clean. Here's the counterintuitive exec takeaway. Rational front offices should sometimes force stars out earlier than feels comfortable. The CBA math punishes continuity more than rebuilds, and romantic loyalty costs more rings than it creates. That's not cynical. That's what the spreadsheet says every time. So what would actually fix this? 3 realistic changes. First, tie the supermax percentage to performance incentives or lower it for players who haven't hit MVP level production. Add a tax relief carve-out specifically for genuine one-team players who actually deliver playoff results. Right now, the 35% rate applies regardless of whether you're Giannis or Bradley Beal. Second, soften the repeater tax and apron penalties for small market teams retaining homegrown cores. The current structure advantages big market owners who can absorb the tax hit and keep competing. Oklahoma City, Memphis, Indianapolis, these markets can't print money the way New York or LA can. The loyalty penalty falls hardest on exactly the teams the league should want to protect. Third, relax the trade matching rules for supermax players once a team crosses the second apron. Right now, the contract becomes almost unmovable at the exact moment the team needs to move it. A flexibility window post-apron gives franchises an exit before the damage becomes permanent. Who wins and loses from these changes? Small market teams gain real flexibility. Star players lose some max money upside. Big market owners lose a competitive edge they've quietly relied on for years. Agents lose leverage on certain deals. Fans in the league overall gain more parity and more star movement, which is what actually drives ratings. The current system is built to benefit mobile superstars and big market owners who can outspend the tax. Loyalty is just the $500 million bill everybody else ends up paying. The NBA's loyalty incentives aren't a reward system, they're a $500 million trap buried inside the CBA. Next time you see a Supermax extension announced, pull up that team's projected tax bill 4 years out before you call it a win. Drop a comment. Which star should their team have traded 2 years earlier? And if this landed, the next video covers how small market GMs are quietly using the new apron rules as a rebuild accelerator. Stick around.